I watched them bury my father on a Tuesday morning, and by Tuesday night, my own mother was handing me an eviction notice. My name is Caitlin, and I should probably start by saying I'm not the victim in this story. Not anymore. The funeral was everything Dad would have hated. Overpriced flowers, a casket that cost more than most people's cars, and my mother Maggie holding court like she was accepting condolences for a beloved husband instead of the man she'd barely spoken to in his final months. My sister April stood beside her in a black dress that probably cost more than I'd spent on groceries in 6 months, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. "Caitlin, honey, come stand with the family!" Aunt Ava called out, waving me over from where I'd been lingering near the back. April's husband Carter shot me a look that might have been sympathetic if I didn't know better. "Yeah, Caitlin, you should be up front." I walked over, but the space they made for me felt like an afterthought, a gap just wide enough for one person, positioned so the photographer would have to work to get me in the shot. "Thank you all for coming," Maggie said to the crowd, her voice carrying that practiced grief she'd been perfecting since Dad's diagnosis. "Manuel would be so touched to see how many lives he impacted." I bit my tongue. Dad would have wanted a quiet service with maybe 10 people. He'd told me so, during one of those late nights when it was just him and me and the sound of his oxygen machine. "He was such a devoted family man," April added, reaching over to squeeze Maggie's hand. "Always putting his wife and daughters first." The irony wasn't lost on me. For the past 2 years while Dad was dying, it had been just me putting him first. Me who quit my nursing job to care for him full-time. Me who learned to operate medical equipment, manage his medications, and hold his hand through the worst of it. April had visited maybe 6 times in 2 years, always with an excuse about work or the kids or Carter's schedule. Maggie had been physically present but emotionally checked out, spending most of her time planning what she'd do after. "Caitlin was such a help," Maggie continued, and I could hear the dismissal in her tone. "The way you'd thank a hired caregiver." "We're so grateful she could put her life on hold to be here." Put my life on hold, like caring for my dying father was some kind of inconvenience I'd graciously agreed to handle. The service dragged on. People shared memories of Dad that sounded like they were talking about a stranger. His golf buddies mentioned games I'd never heard of. His business associates talked about deals that happened decades ago. Nobody mentioned how he'd started keeping a journal in his final months, writing letters to people he wanted to thank. Nobody talked about how he'd spent hours teaching me to manage his affairs, walking me through every document and account with the patience of a man who knew his time was running out. After the burial, everyone came back to the house. Dad's house, where I'd been living for 2 years. The house where I'd set up a hospital bed in the living room and learned to sleep with one ear open in case he needed help in the night. People filled the rooms, eating catered food and sharing stories. I moved through them like a ghost, accepting hugs and condolences that felt hollow. My friend Lexis found me in the hallway. "How are you holding up?" she asked, and I could tell she actually wanted an answer. "I'm fine," I said, which was true in the most technical sense. "What's next for you? Are you going back to nursing?" Before I could answer, April appeared at my elbow. "Caitlin, Mom wants to see you in the kitchen. Family meeting." Lexis squeezed my arm. "Call me later, okay?" I followed April through the crowd. Maggie was waiting by the kitchen island, still in her funeral dress but with her shoes kicked off. She looked tired, but there was something else in her expression, something that looked almost like relief. "Sit down, honey," she said, gesturing to one of the bar stools. I remained standing. "What's this about?" April pulled a folded paper from her purse and set it on the counter between us. We need to talk about living arrangements. I looked down at the document. It was an eviction notice, filled out in April's careful handwriting, dated today. "You're evicting me," I said. Not a question. "It's not personal," Maggie said quickly. "It's just that with your father gone, things need to change. April and Carter are thinking about moving back to help me manage everything, and there's not room for all of us," April finished. "You understand?" I picked up the notice and read it carefully. 24 hours to vacate. I set it back down and looked at both of them. My mother and my sister, standing there in their funeral clothes, telling me I had one day to pack up my life and leave the house where I'd spent 2 years caring for the man they'd barely bothered to visit. 24 hours, I repeated. "I know it seems fast," Maggie said, "but we really need to start fresh. You understand?" I nodded slowly, and something in my expression must have reassured them, because April actually smiled. "I'm glad you're being reasonable about this," she said. "We were worried you might make things difficult." I folded the eviction notice in half and slipped it into my pocket. Then I walked to the kitchen drawer where Dad had always kept important papers and pulled out a manila folder. "You know what?" I said, setting the folder on the counter. "I think we should definitely talk about living arrangements." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. The paper was crisp, official, with the law firm's letterhead at the top. "What's that?" April asked, but her voice had changed, less confident. "Dad's will," I said, unfolding it carefully. "The real one, updated 3 months ago." Maggie stepped closer. "That's impossible. We have his will. Roland gave us copies." "You have copies of his old will," I corrected. "This is the revision he made after he realized what you two were planning." April's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I cleared my throat and began reading aloud. "I, Manuel Valdez, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments." I looked up at them. "Should I continue?" "Caitlin, stop playing games!" Maggie snapped. "Your father wouldn't—" "To my daughter Caitlin, who sacrificed her career and personal life to care for me in my final years, I leave the entirety of my estate." I kept reading, my voice steady. "This includes the family home, all bank accounts, investment portfolios, and business interests." The silence stretched between us. April was staring at the document like it might burst into flames. "That's not legal," she said finally. "You can't just— Dad wouldn't cut us out completely." I flipped to the second page. "To my wife, Margaret, and daughter April, who chose to prioritize their own interests during my illness, I leave the sum of $1 each to ensure this will cannot be contested on grounds of oversight." Maggie sank onto one of the bar stools. "He wouldn't do this to us." "Oh, but there's more." I pulled out another document. "See, Dad also transferred ownership of this house to me 6 months ago. It's not even part of the estate anymore. It's already mine." April lunged forward, trying to grab the papers. "Let me see those." I stepped back, holding the documents out of reach. "Careful. These are the originals." "This is insane," April said, her voice rising. "You manipulated him. You isolated him from his family and—" "I isolated him!" I laughed, and it came out sharper than I intended. "April, you visited 6 times in 2 years. 6. I counted." "I was busy. I have a family, responsibilities." "So did I. I had a job, a life, a boyfriend who got tired of coming second to Dad's medical appointments." I set the documents back in the folder. "But I chose to be here, every day, every night. Maggie was shaking her head. There has to be a mistake. Your father loved us. He wouldn't. He loved you, I agreed, but he also saw you, both of you, planning what you'd do with his money while he was still alive, talking about selling the house, liquidating his investments. We never... April started. You did it right in front of him, I continued. You thought because he was sick, he wasn't paying attention, but he heard every conversation about how much the house was worth, every discussion about which of his things you wanted to keep. Carter appeared in the doorway. Everything okay in here? People are starting to leave. Carter, April said, her voice desperate. Tell her this is crazy. Tell her she can't just... Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I should probably call Roland. He's expecting to hear from me today. Wait, Maggie said quickly. Let's talk about this. We're family. We can work something out. I dialed the number. Roland picked up on the second ring. Caitlin, how did everything go today? Hi, Roland. I'm here with Mom and April. They just served me with an eviction notice. I could hear him sigh. 24 hours? That's right. Well, I suppose it's time then. Are you ready to proceed? I think so. Good. I'll be there within the hour with the documentation. And, Caitlin, the security system is already active. Everything's being recorded. I hung up and looked at my family. Roland's on his way. He's bringing copies of everything for your records. Security system? Carter asked. Dad had cameras installed last month. Motion-activated cloud storage. He wanted to make sure there was a record of everything that happened in his final weeks. I smiled. Funny thing about those cameras, they pick up audio too. April's face had gone from pale to grey. You're bluffing, am I? Want to test that theory? I walked over to the kitchen window and pointed to a small device mounted under the eave. That one has a perfect view of the driveway. Great footage of you and Mom going through Dad's car last week, looking for his spare keys to the safe deposit box. Maggie stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're contesting this, Will. We'll fight it. With what money? I asked. Because according to these bank statements, the accounts you thought were nearly empty, Dad moved that money into a trust that I control. I pulled out the final document. The Caitlin Valdez Trust, established to ensure the care and comfort of Manuel Valdez during his final illness, and to provide for his primary caregiver thereafter. April was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. You planned this. I didn't plan anything. Dad planned this. I just listened when he explained it to me. I closed the folder. So, here's what's going to happen. You have 24 hours to pack your things and leave. Both of you. We live here too, Maggie protested. No, you don't. You live in the guest room of my house, and your invitation has been revoked. Carter cleared his throat. Maybe we should all take a step back. Carter, with all due respect, this doesn't concern you. I looked at April. Unless you want to make it concern him, because I'm pretty sure Dad's cameras caught some interesting conversations between you two about his medication schedule. The color drained from Carter's face. 24 hours, I repeated. Roland will be here soon to make it official. The next hour was chaos. April paced the kitchen like a caged animal, while Maggie sat at the counter with her head in her hands. Carter had disappeared, probably calling someone, his lawyer, maybe, or April's friends who might know what to do when your sister-in-law suddenly owns everything you thought was yours. This won't hold up in court, April said for the 5th time. Dad wasn't in his right mind. The cancer, The medication. He was lucid until the end, I said calmly. Roland made sure of that. There are medical records, witness statements. Witness statements from who? His doctors, his nurses. Me. I leaned against the counter. Funny thing about hospice care, they document everything. Every conversation, every decision. Dad was very clear about what he wanted. Maggie finally looked up. Caitlin, please, I know you're angry, but this is extreme. We're your family. Are we? Because family doesn't plot to sell their dying father's house while he's still breathing. We never said we were selling the house. No, you said you were exploring options. April's exact words to that realtor who came by 3 weeks ago. April stopped pacing. You were listening to our phone calls? I was sitting right there. You just didn't notice me anymore. I pulled out my phone. Want me to play the recording? Dad's security system has excellent audio quality. The front door opened and Roland walked in, carrying a briefcase and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Ladies, he said, nodding to each of us. Carter. He'd found Carter in the living room, apparently. Roland, thank God, Maggie said, standing up. Please tell me this is all some kind of mistake. Roland set his briefcase on the counter and opened it. I'm afraid not, Margaret. Manuel was very specific about his intentions. But the will we have was superseded by this revision. Roland pulled out a thick stack of papers. Manuel came to my office 3 months ago with very clear instructions. He wanted to ensure Caitlin was protected and provided for. April crossed her arms. Protected from what? Roland glanced at me, then back at April. From being left homeless and penniless after sacrificing 2 years of her life. She wasn't sacrificing anything, April snapped. She was unemployed anyway. I quit my job, I said quietly. I had a good job at the hospital. Benefits, retirement plan, the works. I gave it up to take care of Dad. That was your choice. Yes, it was, and Dad appreciated it. Roland cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the practical matters. Margaret April, you'll need to remove your personal belongings within 24 hours. We're not going anywhere, April said. We're contesting this will. That's your right, Roland agreed. But the house transfer happened 6 months ago. That's not part of the estate. Caitlin owns this property outright. Carter reappeared in the doorway. April, we need to talk. Not now, Carter. Yes, now. His voice was firm in a way I'd never heard before. Outside. They stepped onto the back patio, but their voices carried through the glass door. This is insane, April was saying. She can't just kick us out. Actually, she can, Carter replied. I called my brother. He's a real estate attorney. If she owns the house, we'll fight it. With what money? Our savings are tied up in the business, and if what she's saying about the bank accounts is true. Their voices dropped, but I could see April gesturing wildly while Carter shook his head. Roland was organizing papers on the counter. Caitlin, I need you to sign a few things. Transfer documents, account authorizations. I picked up the pen, but Maggie grabbed my wrist. Please, she said, and for the first time her voice broke. Don't do this. I know we haven't been perfect, but we're still your family. I looked down at her hand on my wrist. Her nails were perfectly manicured, her wedding ring sparkling under the kitchen lights, the same hands that had gone through Dad's desk drawers while he slept, looking for financial documents. You're right, I said softly. We are family. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. I gently pulled my wrist free and signed the first document. April and Carter came back inside just as I was finishing the paperwork. April's eyes were red, but her jaw was set with determination. "Fine," she said. "We'll pack tonight, but this isn't over." "I know," I replied. Roland closed his briefcase. "I'll file these first thing tomorrow morning. Caitlin, call me if you need anything." After he left, the house felt different. Smaller, somehow, with all of us standing there knowing everything had changed. "I need boxes," Maggie said finally. "There are some in the garage," I offered. She nodded and walked away without looking at me. April lingered in the kitchen. "You know what's funny? Dad always said you were too soft, too trusting." She smiled, but it wasn't pleasant. "Guess he was wrong about that." She followed Maggie toward the stairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen where it all started. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. C. Carter." What could he possibly want to discuss that couldn't be said in front of April? I deleted the message and went to make sure the security cameras were working properly. Something told me I was going to need them. I woke up to the sound of drawers slamming upstairs. It was barely 6 a.m., but Maggie and April were already packing. Or destroying things. Hard to tell the difference from down here. My phone had been buzzing all night. Missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Text messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Word was spreading fast. The first message I opened was from my cousin Lisa. "OMG. Is it true you inherited everything? April is posting on Facebook that you stole Dad's money." I scrolled through April's social media. She'd been busy, post after post about family betrayal and elder abuse, and how some people take advantage of sick relatives. The comments were brutal, half the people defending her, half calling her out for never visiting Dad. My phone rang. "Lexus." "Girl, what the hell is happening? My mom just called me asking if you really kicked your family out of their house." "It's my house now," I said, walking to the kitchen to make coffee. "And yes, they have to leave." "Caitlin, this is crazy. I know you're hurt, but..." "But what? I should let them walk all over me like they did Dad." "I'm not saying that. I'm saying maybe there's a middle ground here." Before I could answer, someone knocked on the front door. Through the window, I saw a woman in a business suit holding a clipboard. "Lexus, I have to go. Someone's here." I opened the door to find a private investigator. Her badge read, "Martinez Investigations." "Caitlin Valdez, I'm Detective Martinez. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your father's care during his final months." My stomach dropped. "Who hired you?" "I'm not at liberty to say. May I come in?" "Do you have a warrant?" "This is just a preliminary inquiry. We've received allegations about potential elder abuse, financial manipulation." "Get off my property!" "Ms. Valdez, it would be better if we could discuss this civilly." I started to close the door, but April appeared at the top of the stairs. "Detective Martinez, I'm April Owens. We spoke on the phone." The investigator looked between us. "Perhaps we could all sit down and..." "No," I said firmly. "You can speak to my lawyer, Roland Flores. Now get off my property before I call the police." Martinez handed me a card. "We'll be in touch." After she left, April came downstairs with a satisfied smirk. "Really, April? A private investigator?" "You forced my hand. If you won't be reasonable, I'll find another way to prove Dad wasn't competent when he changed his will." "Good luck with that." My phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Eva. "Caitlin, honey, I just heard the most disturbing news. Is it true you're evicting your mother? It's true. Oh, sweetheart, I know you're grieving, but this isn't what your father would have wanted. Actually, it's exactly what he wanted. He planned all of this. I'm coming over. We need to talk. She hung up before I could object. 20 minutes later, Eva was at my door with Maggie right behind her. They pushed past me into the living room. Sit down, Caitlin, Eva said in her teacher voice. We're going to sort this out. There's nothing to sort out. There's everything to sort out. Maggie's voice was shrill. You can't just destroy this family because you're angry. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting what Dad built. Eva sat on the couch and patted the cushion next to her. Come here, honey. Let's talk about this rationally. I remained standing. There's nothing irrational about following Dad's wishes. Your father was sick, Caitlin. People make poor decisions when they're dying. They get paranoid, suspicious. He wasn't paranoid. He was observant. April came downstairs carrying a box. She set it down and pulled out her phone. What are you doing? I asked. Documenting everything. For the lawyers. She started recording. This is April Owens, and I'm being illegally evicted from my family home by my sister, who manipulated our dying father into changing his will. Turn that off. It's a free country. I can record whatever I want. I walked over and stood directly in front of her phone. You're recording in my house without permission. That's illegal. It's not your house. Actually, it is. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I need to report trespassing. Caitlin, hang up, Eva said sharply. This is ridiculous, Maggie said. We're your family. The 911 operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? I have people in my home who refuse to leave. I've given them notice, and they're now recording me without consent. April stopped recording. Officers are on their way, the operator said. I hung up and looked at the 3 women in my living room. You have 5 minutes to get out before the police arrive. You're making a mistake, Eva said, standing up. This kind of vindictiveness will eat you alive. Maybe, but at least I'll be eating it in my own house. Maggie started crying. I don't understand how you became so cold. I learned from the best, I replied. They left just as the police cars pulled up. Through the window, I watched Eva put her arm around Maggie while April loaded boxes into Carter's truck. My phone buzzed. Another text from Carter. The investigator found something. We need to talk before this gets worse. I stared at the message. What could they possibly have found? Dad and I had been careful about everything. Every decision was documented, every conversation witnessed. But as I watched them drive away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. 3 days later, they were back. I was in Dad's office, going through his desk drawers, when I heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Through the window, I saw April and Carter unloading suitcases from their truck. I called Roland immediately. They're back, I said. April and Carter just pulled up with luggage. Did you change the locks? Yesterday. Good. Don't let them in. I'll call the police. But before I could hang up, I heard the back door open. They had a key I'd missed. Caitlin, April called out. We're home. I stayed on the line with Roland as I walked toward the kitchen. April was standing by the counter, arms crossed, while Carter carried boxes through the door. You need to leave, I said. Now. Actually, we don't. April pulled out a folded paper. Temporary restraining order. You can't evict us until the will contest is resolved. I grabbed the document and scanned it quickly. It looked official, but something felt off. Roland, they're claiming they have a restraining order. That's impossible. I would have been notified. Let me see it. I took a photo of the document and sent it to him. Caitlin, this is fake. The case number doesn't exist, and the judge's signature is forged. Did you hear that? I said loudly, making sure April could hear. My lawyer says your restraining order is fake. April's face went pale, but she didn't back down. It's not fake. Call the courthouse yourself. I'm calling the police, I said, dialing 911 again. Carter dropped the box he was carrying. April, maybe we should— No, we're not leaving. April walked to the living room and sat down on the couch. This is our family home, too. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Officer Rodriguez, the same cop who'd responded 3 days ago, looked tired when he saw us all standing in the kitchen. Ms. Valdez, what's the situation? They broke into my house with a fake restraining order. April jumped up. It's not fake. Show him the document. Officer Rodriguez examined the paper, then called it in to the station. After a few minutes, he handed it back to April. Ma'am, this document is fraudulent. You need to leave the premises immediately. This is insane, April shouted. She's stolen our inheritance and now she's having us arrested. Mom, please lower your voice. I will not lower my voice. This is my father's house. Carter grabbed April's arm. April, stop. Let's just go. She shook him off and turned to face me. You think you've won? You think Dad's money is going to make you happy? I think Dad wanted me to have it, and that's enough. Dad was a cheater, April screamed. He had an affair for 15 years. Mom knew, we all knew, but we kept quiet to protect the family. The room went silent. Even Officer Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. That's not true, I said quietly. Ask her! April pointed at Maggie, who had just walked through the back door. Tell her, Mom. Tell her about Dad's little secretary and their weekend trips. Maggie's face crumpled. April, don't! Why not? She wants to play games with the family secrets? Let's play! April was crying now, but her voice was vicious. Dad wasn't the saint you think he was, Caitlin. He was a liar and a cheater, and maybe that's why he left you everything. Guilt money. I felt like I'd been slapped. Get out. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Get out! Officer Rodriguez stepped between us. That's enough. Ma'am, you and your husband need to leave now, or I'm arresting you for trespassing and document fraud. Carter was already heading for the door. Come on, April. We're done here. This isn't over, April said, but she followed him out. Maggie lingered in the doorway. Caitlin, Don't, I said. Just don't. After they left, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the fake restraining order April had left on the counter. My hands were shaking. Officer Rodriguez cleared his throat. You okay, ma'am? Fine. For what it's worth, family disputes like this, they get ugly. People say things they don't mean. After he left, I went back to Dad's office and sat in his chair. The desk drawer was still open from when I'd been searching earlier. I reached inside and felt around the back corner, where Dad always hid things he didn't want Mom to find. My fingers found an envelope taped to the underside of the drawer. Inside was a letter in Dad's handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before he died. Caitlin, if you're reading this, it means they've started telling lies about me to hurt you. Don't believe them. Your mother is angry because I stopped giving her access to the accounts after I caught her, and April planning to sell everything while I was still alive. The affair she'll probably mention was a business relationship with my accountant, Linda, who helped me set up your trust without your mother's knowledge. I have the receipts and emails to prove it. Check the safe deposit box. I love you, and I'm proud of you. Dad. At the bottom, he'd written, P.S. The cameras caught everything. Check the footage from March 15th. I pulled up the security system on my laptop and scrolled back to March 15th. There it was, clear video of April and Maggie in this very office, going through Dad's files while he slept upstairs. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the audio of them discussing how much longer they thought he had to live, and whether they should speed things up by adjusting his medication schedule. My phone rang. It was Carter. We need to meet, he said. There are things about April you don't know, things that could send her to prison. I met Carter at a coffee shop 20 minutes away from the house. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his hands wrapped around a cup like he was trying to warm himself. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. What do you want, Carter? He looked around the coffee shop, then leaned forward. I need to show you something, but first you have to promise me you won't go to the police until we figure out how to handle this. I'm not promising you anything. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table between us. April doesn't know I have this. He pressed play on a voice recording. April's voice filled the space between us, tinny through the phone speaker. The medication schedule is perfect. If we just adjust the timing a little, make sure he gets confused about when he took his last dose. Another voice, Maggie's, responded. Are you sure? What if someone notices? Who's going to notice? Caitlin's exhausted. She's not paying attention to every little detail. And if he accidentally takes too much of his pain medication... I felt sick. Turn it off. Carter stopped the recording. There's more. Hours of it. When did you record this? I didn't. April did. She was documenting everything, planning to use it against you somehow. She thought she was being smart, keeping records. He ran his hands through his hair. I found the recordings on her laptop last night. Why are you showing me this? Because I can't live with it anymore. I thought she was just being greedy, fighting over money. I didn't know she was talking about... He couldn't finish the sentence. About killing him. I don't think she actually did anything. The recordings are from weeks before he died, and his death was natural. The hospice nurses confirmed it. But she was planning it. Yes. I stared at the phone. What do you want from me? I want to make a deal. I'll give you all the recordings, everything April documented, in exchange for your promise that you won't press charges against me. What charges? You didn't do anything. I knew Caitlin. Maybe not the details, but I knew April was planning something. I should have stopped her. Why didn't you? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I was scared of her. I know how that sounds, but April, when she's angry, she's dangerous. And I thought maybe if she got the inheritance, she'd calm down, be happy. So you were willing to let her steal from me to keep her happy? Yes. He met my eyes. I'm not proud of it, but yes. I picked up his phone. I want copies of everything. I'll email them to you tonight. And I want you to testify if this goes to court. Caitlin. Those are my terms. You give me everything. You testify against April if needed, and I won't press charges against you for conspiracy. He nodded slowly. Okay. One more thing. Where is April now? At her sister-in-law's house. She's not taking this well. She's been drinking, making threats. What kind of threats? She says she's going to ruin you. Post everything online. Tell everyone you manipulated your dying father. She's already started calling your old co-workers, telling them you were stealing from patients. My blood ran cold. What? She found out where you used to work and called the hospital, told them you were under investigation for elder abuse and that they should check their medication logs from when you worked there. I stood up so fast I knocked over my chair. She's trying to destroy my nursing license. I'm sorry, I tried to stop her, but you're scared of her. I grabbed my purse. Send me those recordings tonight, Carter. All of them. I was halfway to my car when my phone rang. It was Lexi's. Caitlin, what the hell is going on? I just got a call from someone claiming to be a private investigator, asking about your character. April's trying to destroy my reputation. This is getting out of hand. You need to stop this before it gets worse. I'm not the one who needs to stop anything. I hung up and drove straight to Roland's office. His secretary said he was with a client, but I told her it was an emergency. Caitlin, what's wrong? Roland asked when I burst into his office. April's been planning to kill Dad. I have recordings. The color drained from his face. Sit down. Tell me everything. I explained about Carter, the recordings, April's campaign to destroy my reputation. Roland took notes, asked questions, made phone calls. We need to go to the police, he said finally. What about the will contest? This changes everything. If April was planning to harm your father, her claim to the inheritance becomes criminal conspiracy. The court will throw out her case immediately. And if she's already damaged my nursing license, we'll deal with that too. But first, we need to get these recordings to the authorities. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you're so smart? Wait until everyone knows what you really are. A. I showed Roland the message. She's escalating, he said grimly. We need to move fast. As if on cue, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my old hospital. Ms. Valdez, this is Human Resources at Memorial Hospital. We need to discuss some serious allegations that have been made against you. I'll call you back, I told the HR representative, and hung up. Roland was already on his phone with the police. Yes, we have recordings of conspiracy to commit murder. No, the victim is deceased, but the conspiracy occurred. We'll be there within the hour. While he finished his call, I opened my laptop and checked my email. Carter had sent the files, dozens of audio recordings, screenshots of text messages, and what looked like financial documents. The first recording I opened made my stomach turn. It was April and Maggie discussing Dad's medication schedule in detail, calculating how much morphine would be too much without being obviously suspicious. Roland, you need to hear this. He listened to 30 seconds before stopping the playback. Jesus Christ! How long has this been going on? According to the timestamps, they started planning this 2 months before Dad died. My phone rang again. The hospital. Ms. Valdez, I'm going to need you to come in today. We've received some very serious allegations about patient care during your employment here. What kind of allegations? Medication theft, falsifying records, and inappropriate relationships with terminal patients' families. That's all lies. I can prove it. I hope so, because we've also been contacted by the State Nursing Board. Your license is under investigation. I hung up and looked at Roland. She's trying to destroy everything. We stop this now. Let's go to the police station. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in Detective Williams' office, watching him listen to the recordings with increasing horror. "This is attempted murder," he said finally. "Even if they didn't follow through, conspiracy to commit murder is a felony." "What happens now?" I asked. "We arrest them. Both of them." He stood up. "Do you know where they are?" "April's at her sister-in-law's house. I don't know about my mother. We'll find them. In the meantime, I need you to stay available. You'll probably need to testify." As we left the police station, Roland's phone rang. "It's the courthouse," he said, answering. "Roland Flores. What? When? No, that's impossible." He hung up looking confused. "What's wrong?" "The judge just dismissed April's will contest. Apparently she withdrew her petition this morning." "Why would she do that?" My phone buzzed. A text from April. "Check your email. You win. But you'll pay for this." I opened my email and found a message from April with a single attachment, a bank statement showing a transfer of $50,000 from an account I didn't recognize to my personal checking account, dated yesterday. "Roland, look at this." He studied the screen. "This is fake. Someone's trying to make it look like you bribed April to drop the contest." "She's setting me up." Another email arrived, this one from a local news reporter. "Ms. Valdez, we'd like to interview you about the allegations of elder abuse and bribery in your father's estate case. Can you comment on the $50,000 payment to your sister?" "She sent this to the media," I said, showing Roland. "This is harassment. We're getting a restraining order." But before we could leave for the courthouse, Detective Williams called. "We have a problem. April and Margaret aren't at the address you gave us. The sister-in-law says they left this morning with suitcases." "They're running?" "Looks like it. We've issued warrants, but they had a head start. I drove home feeling like the walls were closing in. April had managed to escape arrest while simultaneously destroying my reputation. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters, former colleagues, people I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know about the family inheritance scandal. When I pulled into my driveway, there was a news van parked across the street. I parked in the garage and went inside through the back door, but they must have seen me because someone started pounding on the front door immediately. "Ms. Valdez, Channel 7 News. We'd like to get your side of the story." I closed all the blinds and turned off the lights, but they didn't leave. Through the window, I could see the reporter doing a live broadcast from my front yard. My phone rang. Carter. "Caitlin, I'm sorry. I tried to stop her, but she found out I gave you the recordings. Where is she?" "I don't know. She took money from our joint account and disappeared, but she left something for you." "What?" "A package. She made me promise to deliver it if anything happened to her." "Bring it over." "I can't. There are news vans everywhere. Can you meet me?" An hour later, I snuck out the back door and walked 3 blocks to meet Carter at a gas station. He handed me a manila envelope. "She said to tell you this was Dad's real secret. The one thing he never told you." Inside the envelope was a birth certificate. My birth certificate. But the father's name wasn't Manuel Valdez. It was someone named David Morrison. At the bottom, April had written a note. "Dad wasn't your real father. He knew it, Mom knew it, and now everyone else will too. Enjoy your inheritance, sister." I stared at the document, my hands shaking. "Is this real?" Carter nodded miserably. "She had it DNA tested. She's been planning this for months." "So everything Dad left me, legally, it doesn't matter. He adopted you when you were 2. You're still his daughter in the eyes of the law. But not in blood. No. I folded the birth certificate and put it back in the envelope. Where did she get this? Your mom's safety deposit box. April had a key. My phone buzzed. Another text from April. Check the news in 1 hour. Everyone's going to know what you really are. I looked at Carter. She's going to release this publicly. I'm sorry, Caitlin. I tried to stop her. No, you didn't. You helped her plan this whole thing. He didn't deny it. I walked back to my house, past the news vans, past the reporters shouting questions. I went straight to Dad's office and sat in his chair. In 1 hour, the whole world would know that I wasn't really Manuel Valdez's daughter, that everything I'd inherited, everything I'd fought for, was built on a lie. But as I sat there, surrounded by Dad's things, I realized something April hadn't counted on. I didn't care. I called a press conference. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I set it up in Dad's living room, opened the front door, and invited every reporter who'd been camping on my lawn to come inside. Thank you all for coming, I said, standing in front of the fireplace where Dad's ashes sat in their urn. I understand there are questions about my family situation, so let's clear everything up. The reporters crowded into the room with their cameras and microphones. I could see neighbors gathering on the sidewalk outside. First, yes, it's true that my biological father is not Manuel Valdez. I learned this information yesterday, at the same time you did. I held up the birth certificate. My sister April discovered this and chose to make it public as revenge for losing our father's inheritance. A reporter raised her hand. Do you feel your inheritance is illegitimate? No. Manuel Valdez adopted me when I was 2 years old. He raised me, loved me, and chose to leave me his estate. Biology doesn't change that. What about the allegations of elder abuse? I have recordings that prove my sister and mother were planning to overdose my father with his pain medication to speed up his death. These recordings have been turned over to police. I nodded to Detective Williams, who was standing in the back of the room. Warrants have been issued for their arrest. The room erupted with questions, but I held up my hand. There's more. The private investigator my sister hired, the fake restraining order, the attempts to destroy my nursing license, all of this is documented. My sister has been running a campaign of harassment and fraud. My phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and smiled. Excuse me, I said to the reporters. I need to take this call. It was Roland. Caitlin, they found them. April and Margaret were arrested at the airport trying to board a flight to Mexico. Thank you, I said loudly enough for the microphones to pick up. That was my lawyer. My sister and mother have just been arrested. The reporters started shouting questions again, but I wasn't done. I want to read something, I said, pulling out Dad's letter. This is from my father, written 2 weeks before he died. I read the entire letter aloud, including his explanation about the fake affair and his pride in me. When I finished, the room was quiet. My father knew his wife and daughter were planning to steal from him. He knew they were discussing ways to kill him, and he protected me the only way he could, by making sure I inherited everything they were trying to take. A reporter from Channel 7 stepped forward. What do you say to people who think this whole situation is about greed? I say they're right. It is about greed. My sister's greed. My mother's greed. I looked directly into the camera. I gave up 2 years of my life to care for a dying man. I lost my job, my savings, my relationship. I did it because I loved him, Not because I expected anything in return. But you did get something in return, another reporter said. A substantial inheritance. Yes, I did, and I'm keeping it. I smiled. Every penny. The press conference lasted another hour. When the last reporter left, I sat alone in the living room, looking at the chaos they'd left behind. Overturned furniture, coffee stains on the carpet, muddy footprints everywhere. Lexi's knocked on the door. Can I come in? It's unlocked. She stepped inside and looked around. Well, that was something. Did you watch it? Everyone watched it. It's already trending on social media. She sat down next to me. How do you feel? Tired? Are you okay with everyone knowing about your biological father? I shrugged. Manuel was my real father. The man who donated sperm 32 years ago was just a stranger. What happens now? Now I clean up this mess and figure out what to do with the rest of my life. And April and your mom? They'll go to prison. Conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, harassment. Roland says they're looking at serious time. Lexis was quiet for a moment. Do you feel bad about it? No. I looked at Dad's urn on the mantel. They made their choices. My phone buzzed, a notification that I had a new message on the family estate's social media page. Someone had shared my press conference video with the caption, "This is how you handle family betrayal. Respect." The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, people sharing their own stories of family greed, of being taken advantage of by relatives, of standing up for themselves against impossible odds. Look at this, I said, showing Lexis the screen. She scrolled through the comments. You've started something. Good. That evening, after Lexis left and the house was quiet, I sat in Dad's office and opened my laptop. I started typing, "My name is Caitlin, and I want to tell you about the day I inherited everything and lost my family. Some of you might think I'm the villain in this story. Others might think I'm the hero. The truth is, I'm neither. I'm just someone who refused to be a victim." I wrote for hours, telling the whole story from the beginning. The funeral, the eviction notice, the will, the recordings, everything. When I finished, I posted it online with the title, "How I Discovered My Family Was Planning to Murder My Father." Within minutes, it had dozens of comments. Within hours, thousands. People sharing their own stories, offering support, asking questions. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen, where this all started 3 days ago. The eviction notice was still on the counter where April had left it. I picked it up, walked to the fireplace, and threw it into the flames. "Thanks, Dad," I said to the urn on the mantel, "for everything." Outside, the news vans were finally gone. The house was mine, the money was mine, and the truth was out there for everyone to see. I'd won, but as I stood there in the quiet house, surrounded by everything I'd fought for, I realized something April had been right about after all. Victory was lonely, and I was okay with that.